In what ways does your media product use, develop, or challenge forms of the conventions of real media products? The front cover of my magazine develops and challenges many of the conventions that are attributed to normal magazines. The masthead on my magazine is transparent. This develops the conventions of a normal masthead in one block color. I decided to make the masthead transparent because I wanted to keep the background of the top left-hand corner intact. I did this because it places the subject of my picture on the third, which gives the illusion of space. Although this may be, I've still decided to position the masthead in a conventional area of the magazine. This has been done to show the audience that this is a magazine and not a poster. With this additional space, I decided to place my cover lines accordingly. However, I've challenged the concept of a main cover line because I believe it undervalues other stories throughout the magazine. I've also developed the use of cover lines by altering the meaning of a cover line on my front cover. I've done this by having the cover lines as just artists that are major in the genre as it exists today. My reasoning behind this is because of the fact that this specific genre doesn't normally use the physical outlet of media to distribute information. Instead, they prefer to use faster sources of gathering information, such as retrieving data from the internet. I'll challenge the convention of a banner in my front cover, as I don't feel that any of the articles within the magazine prioritize over another. On the other hand, the typography in my magazine is quite diverse. Based on secondary book research, I decided to use different fonts to break away from the normal one-type-fits-all way of designing. Developing this convention was done primarily to make the magazine stand out amongst other competitors on shelves. The masthead font was a design I created in Photoshop and really distinguishes itself from the mastheads that are lackluster and boring, such as Q and XXL. The image on my front cover has been placed on the thirds. This allows for extra space for cover lines. The anchorage of this image gave me a lot more freedom with regards to the placement of my masthead. However, as previously mentioned, the masthead's placement conforms to conventions to distinguish it as a magazine. When I was first given the task of making this magazine, my textual analysis led me to believe I didn't need a distinctive house style. However, I wanted a sense of continuity throughout the magazine and decided that a house style would actually be beneficial. The house style for my magazine consists of yellow, green, black and white. I've used a house style similar to the way Mixmag had implemented it by using it for the front cover and double page spread to connote continuity. Therefore, I've developed the use of a house style as it isn't a prominent feature throughout my magazine. It's quite understated in the contents page and more obvious in the double page spread. The barcode is placed in a conventional place. I added a barcode so that it could be sold through manual retailers. The pricing, issue number and web URL are all on the barcode. I decided to do this so the reader can see the price, company website and the issue number clearly. The layout of my content page is quite unconventional, from the quirky logos and images to the story titles. It isn't immediately apparent that you're looking at a contents page, due to the lack of a header or a footer. However, the title, Contents Plus, shows the reader that this is a contents page. The background image in this contents page is of this artwork I had seen on a brick wall. It was taken near the location of the front cover and therefore connotes a sense of continuity. The other two images on this content page are of the artist Crypt and Signia. However, the layout of these two images develops the use of indenting images. This has been done by making a yin-yang design in Photoshop and clipping the images to respective areas of said object. I believe that this yin-yang design not only makes the contents page more interactive, it also anchors the story title sprawled around it. The inspiration for the yin-yang design came from looking at Mixmag's designs and how the story titles are put around the border of a main image in the middle. So I've actually developed the layout of the main image being centered and story titles being placed around it. I decided not to use subheads in the contents page. This is because I wanted the content to flow and not be divided into categories that may put off the reader. This challenging of a convention is not similar to magazines I had previously analysed. The story titles challenge the convention of normal story titles, as they don't have additional information. I've purposely done this for two reasons. One of the reasons is that the additional room below the titles allows for smaller designs that are more interactive. And the second reason is that it doesn't bore the reader. Contents pages in the magazines I've analysed, such as Mixmag, are quite text heavy, which can lead to some key articles being ignored. The repetition of my masthead has been done to reinforce a strong brand image, similar to the way Clash has done it in their magazines. This technique is used by many other publishers, therefore I've conformed to the conventions. The page numbers in the contents page have been placed in quite an unconventional way. I've decided to place them in boxes, thus challenging the conventions that columns are needed to make a contents page work. The reason I challenge the the convention of columns in my contents page is because they limit what you can and can't do around the text. The typography becomes immobile and not malleable, whereas when there aren't guidelines to what you can and can't do, design becomes more creative. Unlike my front cover and contents page, my double page spread conforms to many conventions found in real magazines. My inspiration for this magazine came from looking at similar magazines such as Woofer and Mixmag. The left-hand side of the page is dominated by Signia, similar to the Mixmag double page spread I analysed, whereby the right-hand side of the page is dominated by an old DJ. The headline for my double page spread has been put on the right-hand side. This has been done so that the reader can find out what the article is about before reading it. Based on the magazines I have analysed, it seems like I have developed the use of a headline, as it's also part of my kicker. This was done to make the headline a lot bolder. The footer of the page has a website number and URL for ease of access. The image on the left-hand side is of Signia. The mise-en-scène in this image is quite abstract, as Signia is wearing a gas mask. The inspiration for such an abstract prop comes from the electronic music producers such as Funtcase and Deadmau5. The right-hand side of the image contains the contents of the article. However, I did struggle with the mounting of the text on the right-hand side because of the fact it was colour-heavy. Instead of opting out for another image, I decided to make the right-hand side of the image slightly opaque. The inspiration from this came from the Mixmag magazine I analysed. The left-hand side of the double-page spread had a black fade to allow the mounting of text. The article itself challenges the convention of columns, as the layout is more casual and a lot less formal. I've done this because I wanted an article that didn't focus too much on the layout, but more on an easy read experience. In addition to the lack of columns, there is no pull quote. This was done because I'd already captioned the image. I developed the use of a stand verse on my double page spread. It informs the reader of the contents within the story, however it isn't at the beginning of the first paragraph. I placed it under the headline, The Death of Rap. I placed it here so the reader can see who is speaking about the death of rap, and in this instance it is Signia. Instead of a pull quote, I captioned the image with the saying, "Take off the mask, this ain't World War II." This was done to add a humorous side to the serious mise-en-scène in the image.